The following podcast contains extremely graphic subject matter, including victim mutilation, cannibalism, and discussions of sexual assault. Listener discretion is strongly advised.
The holidays are a time when the masks we wear all year grow thin, and the pressure cooker of forced family togetherness hisses and spits. Once spread with laughter and warmth, the Thanksgiving table can transform into a battleground. Each dish a loaded weapon, a carelessly spoken word, a thoughtless criticism, and the air thickens with tension that hangs heavy as fog. Political discussions transform into sharpened daggers, each of their points aimed at the heart. While this seems awful, these are harmless annoyances, my friends. Rarely do the arguments at the Thanksgiving table consume us. But on Thanksgiving Day in 1991, Bill Nelson wasn't as lucky. His day was filled with unspeakable horrors. His wife, Omaima Nelson, brutally murdered him. But her depravity didn't stop there. Driven by a monstrous hunger that could not be fulfilled with turkey, she engaged in the ultimate taboo, cannibalism. As families across the nation sat down to enjoy their turkey, Omaima feasted on the flesh of her slain spouse. This story is so shocking and filled with stomach-churning details. I hope you'll join me as we carve into the chilling tale of a holiday that became a day of horror. In an impoverished Egyptian village, the screams of Omaima echoed through her wretched childhood. Her twisted father's cruelty knew no bounds, not even in her own flesh. The agony of genital mutilation, a perverse protection, left her scarred both inside and out. This was a common practice in Egypt and throughout India. It was to prevent women from having sex before they were married. Obviously, in current times, the practice is heavily opposed. Omaima's mother finally chose to leave and divorce her father, moving them to Cairo, also called the City of the Dead. This city is built around a series of Islamic-era necropolis. The necropolis has grown over centuries and contains graves of the local populations as well as mausoleums of its historical elites and rulers. When Omaima turned 18, she met Richard Stainbrook, an American oil worker who was working in Egypt. Her mother, eager to secure a bright future for her daughter, urged Omaima to marry him. Omaima married him and moved to Texas, but their marriage ended quickly. After her divorce, she found herself in California, in the Orange County area. With very few skills, taking various jobs became difficult. She often worked as a nanny, or cleaning houses, and even landed several modeling jobs to help get by. At times, she would meet men in bars and swindle money from them. In 1989, she obtained a driver's license, received multiple traffic violations, and was cited for car theft in Chino, California. She had stolen a car owned by an ex-boyfriend. By November 1990, the first hint of darkness was lurking beneath Omaima's surface. Robert Hansen, a 61-year-old man from Huntington Beach, California, accused her of attempted robbery. He claimed she had pointed a gun at him while he was tied up during a consensual bondage session. The Orange County Sheriff's Department received the complaint, but no official charges were filed. It seemed like a mere blip on the radar of her life. But then there was a man named Richard, another boyfriend who would come forward with a chilling accusation. He said Omaima had put a knife to his throat during their relationship. She would later brush it off, saying it had happened consensually during a sex game. But the question lingered, how much consent had really been involved? The pattern was starting to emerge. Omaima's relationships were becoming increasingly tinged with violence. In one of her darker incidents, she became shockingly violent. She was caught shoplifting by a female security guard. Omaima lashed out in a shocking display of violence. She had bitten the guard's breast, leaving her injured and shaken. The result was a charge of battery, a mark on Omaima's growing criminal record. It was a chilling glimpse into the depths of her rage, hinting at the darkness that lurked beneath her surface. The question was, how much longer before she snapped again? By 1991, she was only 23 and met 56-year-old Bill Nelson, a former pilot from Laredo, Texas. Their meeting place was a dimly lit bar, the kind of place where dreams often go to die. With his flashy red Corvette and matching cowboy boots, Bill seemed like the kind of man who would breathe new life into her world. His large belt buckle caught the light, giving him an air of danger and excitement. Many were drawn to his vibrant presence and his way of commanding a room. But Bill had secrets. The former pilot had been arrested in 1984 for smuggling marijuana on his flights. He was a man living in the shadows, and Omaima was about to step into this darkness with him. Omaima had a type, older American men. He was drawn to their promises of stability, of financial security. She believed they held the key to the better life her mother had always wanted for her. With his tales of a beautiful life and a large, loving family, Bill seemed like the answer to all her prayers. He spoke of his 5 children and 17 grandchildren, painting a picture of a warm, welcoming home. Omaima was swept up in his stories, infatuated with the idea of the life he offered. Just a month after meeting in that dimly lit bar, they stood before a justice of the peace in Phoenix, Arizona, exchanging vows. Their honeymoon was a whirlwind trip to Texas and Arkansas to meet Bill's family. Omaima met Bill's children. Some of his children were older than her. Sometime during their trip, she was bucked off of a horse. She had a head injury, but refused medical treatment. She took aspirin with some vodka and went on with her day. After the honeymoon road trip, the newlyweds head back to Orange County. Bill called his daughter to share how the trip went and invited her to Thanksgiving. His daughter stated she wouldn't be able to make it. Omaima and Bill held their own Thanksgiving dinner alone. But this would be the last meal Bill would ever eat. Omaima claimed that after their dinner, Bill tried to sexually assault her and strangle her. This led her to hit him with a lamp and stab him with a pair of scissors. Then she beat him with a clothing iron until it broke into pieces. She claimed it was self-defense. But this is not where the story ends. After the murder, Omaima slipped into a red dress and a matching shade of red lipstick. Atop her raven hair, she placed a red hat, a macabre crown, if you will. The red stiletto heels she slipped on pierced the ground like daggers as she walked around her husband's lifeless body. His fate was already sealed. Her plan was to cut him into pieces. The blade gleamed under the cold light, its edge slicing through his flesh with efficiency. His head and hands spread neatly across the counter, prepared for their final disposition. In a sizzling pan, they would meet an end as gruesome as the rest of him. But even that was not enough. One final act of mutilation remained, a cruel testament to the rage that had consumed her, and with that, her vengeance would be complete. Omaima planned to castrate her husband. By December 1st, she had stored body parts in trash bags and decided she needed help getting rid of the remains. She arrived at her former boyfriend's home. The two dated for only a very short time. She told him her husband beat her and raped her, and she had no choice but to kill him. Asking for his assistance in disposing of the body, she also explained that she had cut him up and placed him in trash bags. She was driving Bill's Corvette and expressed to him that she needed a truck or something large to assist in disposing of the bags. For his assistance, she offered him $75,000 and a few motorcycles. He asked her to wait while he went to get his truck keys. But really, he was dialing 911. Police arrived, their lights casting an eerie glow over the scene. Omaima emerged, a picture of innocence, stating Bill was away on business in Florida. The officers exchanged skeptical glances. Her words rang hollow. She offered no resistance, answering each question. Yet a nagging sense of unease prickled at them. A bag innocently sitting on the passenger seat drew their attention. A routine search turned into something from a nightmare as the contents of this bag spilled out. Human organs, glistening and raw, tumbled into the light. Bill's lungs now lay pale and still, a grotesque testament to the horror within. Once arriving at the home of Bill and Omaima, officers found human hands in frying pans. One hand was cooked together with the white meat part of a turkey. The other hand had been severed and fried in vegetable oil. More body parts had been found stored in the freezer. During their search of the bedroom, investigators found that the bedposts had been broken, and the bed and box springs were soaked with blood. They noticed bruising around Bill's ankles, or what remains of them. This led authorities to wonder if he had been tied up for a period of time. Authorities found a skinned human torso hanging from the clothing hangers in the bathroom. Neighbors stated that they had heard the garbage disposal running for multiple days, for hours at a time. Some wonder if she disposed of some of Bill in the garbage disposal. His head was found wrapped in aluminum foil, and his face had burns that would be consistent with boiling oil. Had she tried to fry his head as well? Authorities believed at this time that Omaima ate some of Bill's remains. She claimed rape and self-defense. A rape exam was performed, but it came back negative, and the only cuts and bruises on her body were consistent with somebody that had been dismembering a body. Omaima now began to change her story frequently. At first, she insisted that these body parts were parts that someone Bill killed before he left for his trip. Then the story turned to an ancient Egyptian demon told her to dismember Bill's body. However, investigators were still confused as to what happened to nearly 100 pounds of Bill's remains. Omaima was evaluated by psychologists who told them that she cooked Bill's ribs and dipped them in barbecue sauce. She stated that nothing was sweeter than the taste of her husband's flesh. Omaima later tried to take back the statements of cannibalism, but it wouldn't matter. She was charged with a second-degree murder. She was also diagnosed with PTSD as well as being psychotic. Sentenced to 28 years to life. Appeals and parole have all been denied. The parole board indicates that she has never taken responsibility for this horrific act and is still a serious threat to the public. There is no telling what actually happened here. Is she really psychotic? Or was this just revenge for all men that had ever harmed her in her life? Guess we'll never know. Just have to leave this to the unexplained realms. And that's a wrap. The track you hear behind me is titled Bandana. The artist is Ballpoint. You can find him on Spotify. The song spoke to me with its West Coast flavor. As I leave you to digest this disturbing tale, remember, there's a hunger that goes beyond the Thanksgiving table. Some appetites can never be satisfied, and the true horror might not be in the act itself, but the darkness that drove us to it. As you gather around with family and friends this holiday, take a moment to appreciate the light in your lives. For it's in the shadows where the truly unexplained lurks. Keep the lights on tonight, and maybe you'll make it through the night unscathed.